One day, you are going to be old. Your joints will ache. Your memory will slip. The world will move faster than you can keep up with. And on some quiet afternoon, you will wonder, what was the point of all this? But here is what nobody tells you. That question, that exact fear, is uniquely modern. For most of human history, getting old did not mean becoming useless. It meant becoming the most important person alive. The real answer to what happened to ancient humans when they got old is far stranger, far more powerful, and far more human than anything you have been told. Let us go back, way back. Picture yourself 100,000 years ago. You are not in a city. You are not even near one. You are on an open African savanna, part of a band of maybe 30 to 50 people. There are no hospitals, no grocery stores, no written language, no maps. There is only what you know, what you can carry, and who is standing next to you. Now imagine someone in that group reaches the age of 60. In the modern imagination, that person is a burden, too slow to hunt, too weak to fight, too old to matter. That is a story we have absorbed from a culture obsessed with youth and productivity. But that story is wrong. Deeply, provably wrong. Anthropologist Rachel Kaspari spent years studying fossil evidence and came to a stunning conclusion. Around 30,000 years ago, the number of humans surviving into old age suddenly spiked, dramatically. And shortly after that spike, something else happened. Art appeared, complex tools appeared, trade networks appeared, language became richer, culture exploded. That was not a coincidence. The old ones were not passengers, they were the engine. Think about what an elder actually was in a hunter-gatherer band. They were a living library. They carried knowledge that no one else had. Knowledge that could not be written down, could not be looked up, could not be searched. It lived only inside their bodies, inside their memories, inside the stories they told around the fire. Your 60-year-old ancestor knew where the water was when the rains failed. They had survived the last drought. They remembered which plants caused fever and which ones stopped it. They knew the migration patterns of animals that only passed through once every decade. They had watched children grow and make mistakes and learned what worked. That knowledge was irreplaceable. Lose that elder and you lost all of it. Psychologist David Geary has argued that in environments where survival depends on accumulated local knowledge, older individuals hold a disproportionate amount of critical information. In simple terms, the older you were, the more you knew that no one else knew. Your survival value did not decrease with age. In many cases, it increased. This is why anthropologists now believe that the emergence of grandparenting, specifically the role of grandmothers, was one of the pivotal turning points in human evolution. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes spent years observing the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. What she found changed how scientists think about aging entirely. She noticed something unexpected. Older women, women well past reproductive age, were the most productive foragers in the entire group. Not the young men, not the prime age hunters. The grandmothers, they dug tubers, they gathered roots, they processed food, and crucially, they fed their daughters' children while those daughters recovered from childbirth or nursed new infants. Hawkes called this the grandmother hypothesis. The idea is radical and elegant. In most mammal species, females stop being evolutionarily useful once they stop reproducing, but human grandmothers kept contributing. They kept their grandchildren alive, and by doing that, they allowed human mothers to have more children, more often, without sacrificing the survival of the ones already born. Human children have the longest dependent period of any primate on Earth, years and years of needing protection, food, and teaching before they can fend for themselves. Grandmothers made that possible. Old age, in other words, was not an accident of survival. It was a feature. It evolved. The human lifespan extended well beyond reproduction precisely because post-reproductive elders were so valuable to the group. Your body was designed to get old. Now, here is where it gets even stranger. In many ancient societies, age did not just bring survival value, it brought power. Among the Aboriginal Australians, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, elders were the keepers of the dream time, the sacred knowledge of creation, land, law, and cosmology. You could not access that knowledge until you were deemed ready, and the people who decided when you were ready were the old ones. Knowledge was stratified by age. The older you were, the deeper the layers of understanding you were permitted to enter. Among the Inuit of the Arctic, elders were the navigators, not because they were physically strongest, but because they had memorized the ice. They knew how it moved, how it cracked, how it sounded before it broke. A mistake on the sea ice was fatal. Young men had the strength. Old men had the map. Both were necessary. Neither survived without the other. In ancient Mesopotamia, one of the first true civilizations, the word for elder and the word for council were nearly synonymous. The oldest members of a community sat at the gate and resolved disputes. Their age itself was the credential. Gray hair was not a sign of decline. It was a sign of having paid attention for a very long time. And your brain, even today, reflects this design. Here is something that surprises most people. Human cognitive function does not simply decline with age, it shifts. Neuroscientist Elkonan Goldberg has spent decades studying how the aging brain reorganizes itself. What he found is that while raw processing speed does slow, reaction times, memorization of new information, fluid problem solving, something else grows. Pattern recognition, emotional regulation, the ability to see the whole picture rather than fixating on a single detail. Older brains make fewer impulsive decisions. They are better at reading people. They are faster at identifying what actually matters. Goldberg calls this the emergence of the wisdom pattern, a shift from learning new information to synthesizing everything already known. Young brains are built for novelty. Old brains are built for meaning. Both are extraordinary. Neither is better. They were designed to work together. Your 25-year-old brain is a machine for learning. Your 65-year-old brain is a machine for understanding. In ancient societies, those two machines ran side by side inside the same group. The young brought energy and novelty. The old brought context and judgment. Strip either one out and the whole system weakens. This is something modern societies have only recently begun to reckon with, because somewhere in the last few centuries, accelerated dramatically by industrialization, aging changed its meaning. The industrial economy valued speed, output, repeatability. It valued what could be measured and traded. The knowledge carried by elders, contextual, embodied, relational, slow, had no market value. You could not put it in a factory, you could not patent it, and so it became invisible. Retirement was invented, nursing homes were invented, the concept of being past your prime was invented, and with them came something ancient humans never really experienced in the same way, the feeling of being socially irrelevant after a certain age. That feeling is not natural. It is historical. It is cultural, and it runs counter to almost everything the human body and brain evolved to expect. There is a cruelty in this that is easy to overlook. When you remove elders from the center of a community, when you warehouse them in separate buildings, separate neighborhoods, separate social worlds, you do not just harm them. You harm everyone else. You sever a link in a chain that took millions of years to build. The young lose access to depth. The community loses its memory. And the old lose the role their bodies were literally built to play. Biologically, social isolation in old age is catastrophic. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent his career studying loneliness and found that chronic social isolation in older adults accelerates cognitive decline, weakens immune function, disrupts sleep, and increases mortality as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The human body, in old age, still expects to be needed. When it is not, it begins to shut down faster. Your ancient ancestors did not die alone in a room waiting for someone to visit. They died in the middle of a story they were still telling. Now, look at the older people in your own life. A grandparent, a neighbor, a colleague near retirement. Think about what they actually know, not what they can Google, what they have felt, what they watched fail, what they learned to stop worrying about, what they understand about you, about your family, about how things really work. Knowledge that took 60 or 70 years of paying attention to accumulate. That is not decline. That is something your ancestors would have called power. Getting old, for most of human history, was not a fall from relevance. It was the arrival at it. And one day, when your joints ache and your memory slips and the world moves faster than you can keep up with, you will carry something inside you that no young person alive can access. The question is whether anyone will think to ask.